Hey guys, tonight we're peeling back the sheets slowly, carefully, and in far too many layers to find out what it really felt like to fall asleep as a young merchant's daughter in the 19th century. Imagine this. Flickering candlelight throws your silhouette on the attic wall, while the chill of a stone floor seeps through your socks. You're standing there, already half-dressed in night clothes that weigh nearly as much as your school books, trying not to trip over your own bloomers. You want to lie down, sure, but not before you secure every ribbon, drawstring, and button. Oh, and don't forget the modesty collar dot. Welcome to a world where even your dreams are expected to be polite. You probably won't survive this night with your dignity or spine dash intact dot. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there dot now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin the night by undressing in the 19th century middle-class world is a complicated thing. You're not shedding layers so much as replacing some with others, each one performing its own little moral and hygienic function. You unfasten your day bodice, slide off the outer skirt with care. You only have two good ones, and peel away the first chemise. Underneath, you're already sweating in woolen stockings and under petticoats that make rustling sounds when you move. There's nothing remotely sexy about any of this, and you're not supposed to enjoy it anyway. Your night begins not with pajamas, but with a night shift, a long, loose-fitting cotton or linen garment worn over your undergarments, or sometimes, in place of them, depending on how proper your family is. This shift is meant to absorb your body oils, sweat, and dead skin to keep your more valuable outer layers cleaner longer. Historians still argue whether these shifts were ever truly washed thoroughly or simply aired out and reused. Either way, it's scratchy, starchy, and already smells vaguely of carbolic soap and boiled cabbage. You might also be wearing stays to bed. Not the rigid day corsets of upper-class ladies, but soft-corded versions known as night stays or sleeping stays, intended to keep your posture straight and your future marriage prospects intact. Because nothing screams husband material like a well-supported spine at age 14. Mothers, ever vigilant, warn that sleeping loose could cause your figure to spread. Over that goes the nightgown, usually made of muslin or flannel with a high collar and tight cuffs. Because heaven forbid a father or housemaid see your wrist in the morning. And just for good measure, a woolen shawl or bed jacket, in case the night air gets into your chest. An expression that usually meant pneumonia was about to arrive uninvited. You're now encased in no fewer than 5 layers, including the wool. Socks that itch with every tiny movement. It's like preparing for battle with the forces of modesty, cold, and patriarchal suspicion. You climb into bed, a lumpy mattress of straw, horsehair, or if you're lucky, feathers. The sheets are heavy, the quilt heavier, and you share the mattress with a sister or two. This isn't sentimental. It's practical. Bodies mean warmth. And the fire in the downstairs hearth died out hours ago dot, as you try to lie on your side carefully. So your stays don't dig into your ribs, you feel the soft jab of a missed pin. Somewhere in the linen labyrinth, that is. Your nightwear, a fastening has gone rogue. You'll find it in the morning by the red welt it leaves behind. You close your eyes and try to ignore the sensation of the lace trim scratching your neck. It's handmade, passed down from your grandmother and probably infested with invisible lice. Your scalp itches, but scratching is frowned upon, especially after dark. Instead, you think of sheep, or try to. Sleep doesn't come easily. You're not just lying in a bed, you're lying in a social performance. Every thread of your night clothes says something about your class, your respectability, and your future. You're too warm on the inside, too cold on the outside, and vaguely terrified of moving too much and waking someone else. There's no privacy in a merchant's house. Doors are thin, attics echo, and someone always hears. The quirky detail here? Some wealthier merchant daughters tried to rebel by ordering French night dresses looser, lighter, and slightly scandalous. But in most households, that was a ticket to being labeled fast. A girl who slept in a short shift might as well have slept naked in the middle of the parish square. Family reputations were delicate things. After all, one final reality check before your first dream. The idea that 19th century girls had a tidy bedtime ritual with prayers and cocoa is mostly a modern fantasy. More often it was exhaustion, a quick shuffle out of day clothes, a stumble into bed, and hours of trying not to sweat, scratch, or suffocate. So now you're in bed. You've technically undressed. You've obeyed every unspoken rule. You smell like boiled starch and worry, and it's only going to get colder from here. You're still awake, by the way. The wind moans through the ill-fitted window pane like a ghost with indigestion, and the walls of your room, if it can be called a room, creak in protest as the temperature drops. This is the merchant class. Attic, after all, and while your family may not be poor, you're certainly not sleeping on goose down in front of a fireplace. No, your bed is tucked beneath a sharply sloped ceiling where your breath turns to mist. Welcome to winter, and welcome to the Cold War between your layered body and the air trying to get inside it. The walls are thin, and the roof above you is even thinner. Cold radiates from the slate tiles like an angry spirit. You've tucked. Hot brick wrapped in flannel at your feet under the covers. It loses warmth fast, but for the first 5 minutes, it's glorious. After that, it's just one more thing to avoid kicking with your icy toes. Historians still argue whether middle-class girls of the period had access to warming pans or if those were considered too extravagant. Either way, you don't have one. You get a brick. Be grateful. The frost creeps across the inside of your window in quiet silver ferns. It's pretty. It's also a death sentence if you let your nose peek out from under the quilt too long. You pull the heavy bedclothes up to your chin, where the stiff collar of your nightdress scratches your throat, and you try not to cough. Coughing wakes people. Coughing earns you questions, and questions, especially about your health, can be dangerous. A sick girl might be sent away, or worse, denied her Saturday visit to the bookshop. Your sister turns beside you, and the bed responds with a mournful groan. The mattress is old, stuffed with wool and patches of mystery, and it sags toward the center like a well-used sandwich, which means you're both gradually sliding into each other throughout the night. You attempt to wedge a pillow between your bodies for warmth, but also for dignity. Touching knees beneath 3 layers of linen is still considered scandalous, And here's the fun part. There's no central heating, no insulation, not even a decent fire in the room. Merchant houses may have had a parlor with a stove, but bedrooms? Not worth the coal. Coal is expensive. Girls are not Dot, so instead you've learned to layer creatively. Beneath your nightdress you may still be wearing a second shift, or perhaps a chemisette sort of modesty bib popular in mid-century wardrobes, but occasionally used at night by mothers convinced it kept daughters chaste in thought. And if you're lucky or unlucky, a quilted petticoat might have been handed down for the sole purpose of being slept in. It's itchy, yes, but it holds in body heat like a personal oven you can't turn off. Dot. As for your head, well, some girls wrap their hair in cloth to protect it. Others sleep in nightcaps, those dainty, ruffled things that look charming in portraits, but feel like sleeping with a miniature lampshade stapled to your scalp. The cap keeps your head warm and the lice population stable. Yes, you've heard the scratching in the walls. But it's not just the mice. Sometimes it's your scalp telling you that the communal hairbrush downstairs isn't doing its job. You shift again, and the stays pinch. They're not as rigid as daytime corsets, true, but they're firm enough to prevent full relaxation. Your back stays straight. Your hips press together and sleep like they're posing for a silhouette. The phrase lie back and relax doesn't really apply here. The only one relaxing is the family dog downstairs by the hearth. And even he's wearing a coat. The ceiling drips condensation in the corner. There's a patch of mold you pretend not to notice. Your father says it's just a little damp. Your mother says, don't be dramatic. You say nothing because it's impolite to mention your own discomfort. Besides, your cousin Elizabeth once complained about the cold and was told to pray more. Presumably warmth would follow. Quirky fact time. In some merchant households, girls were encouraged to wear gloves to bed. Not silk ones, mind you. Those were for flirtation and funerals, but cotton gloves meant to preserve the softness of your hands. Because what if a boy saw your calluses from laundry day? Scandalous. Better to sweat through your palms at night like a Regency debutante in a sauna. Your nose itches. You reach up to scratch, but your fingers are numb. You forgot to warm them before climbing under the covers. You blow on them softly, trying not to wake your sisters. The middle one snores. The younger one talks in her sleep. You just try to stay still long enough to convince your brain that sleep is an option. Even your dreams feel cold. You imagine walking through snow with bare feet, or worse, being sent out to fetch water from the yard pump in your night clothes. Your imagination is cruel. It knows exactly what to throw at you. And let's not forget, there's no midnight cocoa, no warm milk, no weighted blanket. The 19th century offers you a tepid glass of water from a cracked jug on the washstand. If you're lucky, it's only slightly frozen. You sip, grimace, and tuck back in, trying not to slosh the chamber pot beneath the bed with your foot. The silence stretches. A horse clip-clops on the road beyond the window. Somewhere a baby cries in another flat, and your toes are officially blocks of ice. You will sleep, eventually, out of sheer exhaustion if nothing else, but not before making a mental note to double layer your socks tomorrow night, and maybe, just maybe, ask Mother if you can sleep in the parlor during the next cold snap. but probably not. Because comfort like cocoa is a luxury, girls, like you don't get at bedtime. Summer, as it turns out, is no relief. If winter's your enemy, summer is your frenemy, the one who smiles sweetly while slowly suffocating you. Now you lie in the same bed, but instead of shivering, you're slowly baking in your own sweat. The attic no longer howls with cold, but simmers like a poorly ventilated teapot, and your modest cotton layers trap every degree of it like you're personally responsible for warming the entire house with your body heat. The air feels thick enough to chew. You open the window a crack, just enough to let in a sliver of breeze and about 17 flies. Mosquitoes dive bomb your ears like miniature banshees. One lands triumphantly on your cheek and you slap at it with a limp hand, barely able to muster the energy. The slap echoes in the stillness. Your sister grunts. You apologize that sleeping in summer means trading one discomfort for another. The night dress that once itched from starch now clings with sweat. Your underarms slick, your back damp, your knees uncomfortably stuck together. Historians still debate whether merchant-class daughters in the 19th century had access to thin muslin nightwear or were stuck with heavier flannel year-round. Either way, you're stewing. You kick one leg out from beneath the coverlet, instantly scandalizing your internal Victorian chaperone. Ankles visible. Even in the dark, you tuck it back in, just in case. The walls may be thin, but propriety is thinner, Dot. It's not just the heat. It's the fact that your clothes were never designed with breathability in mind. Bloomers? Still on. Made of cotton, maybe, but heavy cotton. And here's the kicker. They're open at the crotch for airflow and necessity. But in the summer, this just means everything feels both exposed and smothered at once. You lie there, sweating and simultaneously terrified of shifting the wrong way and giving your sister an unwanted anatomy lesson, Dot, to manage sweat. Your mother advises a nightly dusting of starch or rice powder on the neck and inner thighs. It helps barely. It also cakes and turns into a paste that smells like regret. The sachet of dried lavender sewn into your collar has long since given up trying to mask anything. The room smells like humans. Hot, damp, overlayered humans. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some young women actually tried putting lettuce leaves under their caps at night, claiming it helped with night sweats and kept their skin fresh. You tried it once. It wilted and slid into your ear around midnight. You're supposed to sleep face up to preserve your hairstyle braided and wrapped so tightly your scalp throbs. But sweat pools under your neck and shoulders, making every turn a sticky affair. You switch to lying on your stomach and immediately regret it. The stays, even loosened, dig into your ribs, and your pinned hair jabs you like a crown of slightly damp needles. The heat isn't just physical, it's emotional. Summer means visitors. It means open parlors, gossip, garden parties, and the constant unspoken pressure to remain presentable, which means even your nightwear must be in good order. No loose threads, no rips, no yellowing under the arms. You're judged on what you sleep in as much as what you wear at the breakfast table. Sometimes, on the worst nights, your mother allows you to sleep with the window open, all the way gas-panned, with your sleeves rolled to the elbow. She doesn't tell your father. You sleep like a criminal, guilt swirling with gratitude. But the open window brings with it the cacophony of a city that never fully quiets. Dogs bark. Street vendors argue. Someone two houses overplays the violin terribly and with too much enthusiasm. You lie there, slick with humidity, trying to find a dry patch on your pillow. You flip it, then flip it again. You're too hot to sleep and too polite to complain. You once heard of a girl in Manchester who fainted from heat stroke in her own bed. She'd worn a full petticoat out of modesty. Her mother was proud. Historians still argue whether sleep deprivation was a widespread problem among girls in layered societies, or if they simply got used to it. You'd argue the former, but no one's asking. And just when you think you've found a tolerable position lying diagonally across, the mattress with one arm out the window, and your bloomers knotted at the thigh, your sister rolls over and flings her knee onto your shin. Hard, you inhale, exhale, deep breaths, count to 10. Think cooling thoughts, snow, ice, a brisk walk by the seaside. But your skin sizzles and your linen clings tighter. The thought of stripping down, even just to your shift, crosses your mind, but you don't. You can't. What if there's a fire? What if there's an emergency? What if your father comes up to check the window, sees you exposed, and you're suddenly shipped off to live with that dreadful aunt in Cornwall? Instead, you sit up just a little and fan yourself with the side of your pillowcase. It moves hot air around your face in a way that feels like mockery. You lie back down and press your feet against the iron bed frame, which holds a whisper of chill. It's the only cold thing left in the room. You think about licking it. This is sleep in summer. Not restful, not refreshing. Just something you endure. Tomorrow, your eyes will sting. You'll move like an overheated marionette, and your mother will remind you again that a proper girl does not complain. You'll nod, dot, and tomorrow night, you'll sweat all over again. Somewhere around 3 a.m., after the 5th mosquito attack and the 3rd involuntary kick from your sister, you sit up in the bed and tug at your nightgown. Not that it helps. The garment has a personality of its own, part prison, part security. Blanket and entirely committed to sticking to every damp curve of your body. This is the nightdress that knows too much, the relic of domestic respectability and modesty, stitched with invisible rules and maybe a few parasites. Your nightdress isn't merely something to wear in sleep. It's a wearable resume. Long, high-necked, buttoned to the collarbone, sometimes with a frilly yoke or delicate embroidery, if your family can afford it, but never too decorative that might hint at vanity, and certainly not sheer. Sheer is for actresses and French women. You, however, are a merchant's daughter, and you wear flannel like it's a virtue. Even your grandmother's voice echoes in your mind. A decent girl wears her sleeves long, even to bed. You sigh and adjust the sleeve that's bunched at your elbow. It's damp and sticking, of course. And let's not forget, this dress isn't just for sleeping. It's for being seen while sleeping. Should a neighbor fall ill and need lodging? For the night, or a fire break out, or a servant barge in without knocking, your nightdress will be the only thing standing between you and social ruin. Your family expects it to be clean, mended, and ideally boring dot. But here's the thing, it's never truly clean. Despite boiling wash water, despite scrub boards and carbolic soap, Night dresses often carry the ghosts of a dozen summer nights. A faint ring around the collar, a spot of old menstrual blood at the hem, a yellowed underarm, each tells a little tale your mother pretends not to see. Laundry day comes once a week if you're lucky, less often if you're not. And hand-washing your own garments in secret means sneaking around with a basin like you're plotting treason. Historians still argue whether working class and middle class girls were expected to hand-wash their own nightwear or simply leave it in the general laundry rotation. Either way, the result is the same. You're re-wearing it until the smell tells you otherwise. It doesn't help that the fabric itself is an accomplice. Cotton shrinks, muslin sags, and anything woman itches like a hex. You once tried to sleep, and your best calico gown after your night dress was ruined in a wash basin accident. Your mother gave you a 3-hour sermon on decency and then made you sew new sleeve cuffs before breakfast by candlelight. With cold fingers, let's take a moment to address the lice situation. No one talks about it, but everyone scratches. You know the signs, the slight shudder when someone mentions their cap, the quiet combing behind closed doors. If you're unlucky, your night dress has become a haven for them too, especially along the seams. Your family would never admit it, but you've heard the rumors about your cousin Alice's hygiene issues and how her night clothes had to be burned. You wear a faint sprig of rosemary pinned near the collar just in case. It's supposed to repel the little monsters, and yet the garment stays, because modesty must never sleep. Here's a quirky fact for you. Some 19th century etiquette guides suggested that girls should have 2 night dresses, one for every night use and one for emergency social overnighting. Yes, apparently there were categories of slumber-related occasions. If a girl stayed over at a relative's house, or heaven forbid, a boy saw her asleep in her usual stained one, scandal could bloom like mold on last month's jam. You do have a second night dress. It's locked in the linen chest under a stack of extra petticoats and labeled for visitors. You're forbidden from touching it unless your mother says so. You sometimes dream about it. It's slightly softer. It smells of lavender and old hope. Tonight's dress, however, is tight around the shoulders and looser around the hips, a result of too many family repairs and not enough proper tailoring. Your younger sister will inherit it eventually, just like you inherited it from your cousin, which means 3 other girls' sleep sweat is woven into the very threads now resting on your clavicle. Still awake? Of course you are. You try to roll over and the night dress catches under your hip. You tug. It resists. You tug harder, and suddenly the side seam tears with the soft whisper of betrayal. You freeze. Your sister stirs. You both listen to the silence, now punctuated by the quiet humiliation of a ripped hem dot in the morning. You'll sew it shut before breakfast. You always do. You wonder if the night dress is meant to hide your body. Does it also hide your feelings, your fatigue, your quiet desire to just be for once, free of linen bindings and scrutiny and collars that choke like anxiety? Maybe. You try not to think too much. Thinking, like loose nightgowns, leads to trouble. A girl who thinks too much might start to ask questions, and girls with questions don't get good suitors. So instead you stare at the ceiling, counting the shadows of rafters while your night dress hugs you like a passive-aggressive ant. and slowly, fitfully, against every damp fiber of cotton and fear, your mind begins to wander toward sleep. You'll wake twisted, overheated, and with red marks, where the neckline dug into your skin. But for now, just drift. You're dreaming of flying light, free, nothing holding you down when a sharp tug around your midsection drags you back to reality. The corset didn't get the memo that nighttime is for rest. Even in sleep, you're cinched. Not tightly, at least not compared to the bone-snapping day version, but enough to remind you you're still very much someone's daughter, and your body is not entirely yours. These are sleeping stays, a softer, more pliable cousin of the daytime corset. They lack the rigid steel or whalebone, but keep the lacing, the structure, the posture. The idea is simple. A girl's body, once in motion toward womanhood, must be steered like a ship. You're the ship. The corset is the captain. You shift gently. The corset rubs against your ribs. The linen is fraying there. You made the mistake of wearing it too soon after it was laundered and hadn't fully softened. But taking it off? Not an option. Some girls do, sure, you've heard whispers. But they're usually the same ones who get called into the parlor for a talk about reputation. Historians still argue whether sleeping in stays actually produced a better figure, or if it was just one more layer of control masquerading as fashion. The truth probably lies somewhere in between, much like your spine, currently contorted in a question mark under your mattress. Your mother swears by them. "You'll thank me when you're older," she says, tightening the laces with a soft grunt before bed. A woman without form is a woman without future. You've memorized the phrase. It echoes in your head when you pull the ribbons tight each night, hoping it doesn't pinch in a way that wakes you at midnight with a gasp. The real horror, of course, is that this training isn't optional. Merchant-class daughters are caught between two worlds, not rich enough to relax, not poor enough to rebel. You're expected to maintain poise and posture, even while unconscious. Girls of the upper class might have maids to remove their corsets at night and massage their shoulders. Working-class girls, they sleep loose. But you are expected to sleep beautifully, which mostly just means constrained. There's a small embroidered pillow tucked behind your lower back to help keep you aligned. It does nothing. Your ribs ache. You've learned to breathe shallowly. In your sleep, just enough to stay alive, but never enough to relax. Deep breathing? That's for poets and invalids. The irony is that most people think corsets are about fashion, but really they're about discipline. You don't wear one to impress your mirror, you wear it to prove you're under control. Especially at night, when a girl might otherwise be tempted to slouch or, heaven forbid, dream something improper. Here's a quirky little tidbit. There were actual devices, tiny alarm bells, that some mothers attached to a girl's stays, designed to jingle if she tried to remove them during the night. Like a chastity belt, but for posture. You haven't seen one, but you've heard the stories. They sound like fairy tales. Horrible, itchy fairy tales. You've tried loosening your stays a few times, just a little, a few notches. Once, when you had a cough and it hurt to breathe, the freedom was intoxicating. But then your sister caught you and narrowed her eyes like she was judging you from the pulpit. She never said anything, but the next day, your stays were mysteriously tightened so hard you couldn't eat breakfast without wincing. You roll to your side, trying to shift your weight off your hip. Bad move. The corset bites back, folding slightly at the waist and pressing into your kidney like a blunt letter opener. You sigh reposition. You can't lie on your stomach, that's worse. On your back then, like a lady in her coffin. That's the only truly corset-compatible pose. You wonder, briefly, what it would feel like to sleep with nothing. No stays, no chemise, just skin and night air. But that thought makes your toes curl in guilt, and you murmur a half-prayer just to be safe. Historians debate whether some girls wore the same stays day and night for weeks at a time. In theory, that sounds terrible. In practice, you're doing it. The laundry rotation means you have exactly 2 pairs, and one of them is held together with mending thread and stubbornness. You try not to sweat too much in this one, it's your good pair. You once read in a second-hand etiquette guide that a lady should change into fresh stays before bed, just as she changes her mood from public to private. You laughed, quietly, because what is private anymore? Even your sleep posture has a public function. The stays creak softly as you stretch your arms above your head. You feel the pull, the restraint. Your body is learning not just how to sleep, but how to obey. And yes, girls can faint in their sleep. You haven't yet, but your cousin Frances once passed out during a nap. Everyone blamed the heat, but you saw the purplish marks on her waist when she changed into her nightdress. No one talks about that. Just like no one talks about the way your ribs still ache at breakfast. You wonder how long you'll have to do this. At what age does the world stop expecting your silhouette to speak for your soul? But that's a dangerous question. Instead, you focus on your breathing. Shallow, rhythmic, corset approved. You count backwards from 100, not because it works, but because it's something to do that isn't thinking about how it feels to be slowly pressed into a decorative version of yourself you dream eventually. But even there, you're laced in. You're dancing at a ball in a gown made entirely of corset boning. Everyone applauds. You wake up with your shoulders sore and your dignity intact. It's morning again. Almost. You can feel it in the way the light begins to pale the room, even behind your eyelids. Your stays haven't loosened a millimeter. Your waist is still training. Your dreams are still boxed in, but at least you didn't faint. Small victories. You're barely awake and already behind. The sun isn't even up yet, but the day starts early when you sleep in a body cage and sweat-stained linens. And it's laundry day. Laundry, in your world, isn't a pleasant little chore with lavender detergent and a spin cycle. No, it's an all-day saga starring boiling water, scrub boards, blistered hands, and enough starch to give your underthings the rigidity of a Victorian ghost. Your night clothes, the very ones you've been sweating, scratching, and possibly crying in, must now be made presentable. And you are the one who makes them so. You begin with sorting. Shifts, chemises, night dresses, drawers, those open crotch wonders, plus the under petticoats and the linen cloths that line the bodices. Each item gets a sniff, a frown, and, possibly, a whispered apology to the laundry basin for what it's about to endure. The water must be heated manually. You gather coal or wood, build the fire, and wait for the kettle to begin that moaning hiss that means it's ready to scald your knuckles. Washing undergarments is a delicate kind of shame. You don't talk about it. You just do it. Scrub until your wrists ache. Scrub until the yellowed stains fade to beige, and hope no one inspects them too closely. You use soap if there's enough. Sometimes ash lye if times are tight. Either way, it burns a little. You ignore that part. Here's the historical truth. Even by mid-19th century standards, underthings weren't washed daily, or even weekly. They were rinsed, spot-cleaned, and maybe aired in the sun. Full laundry days were events, and you didn't waste them on mere sweat unless it got truly offensive. But your mother is very particular. Merchant daughters must be clean enough to pass. The water turns gray almost immediately, then brown. You tell yourself it's just dust, not body oil, not last week's mildew, just dust. You add more. Soak and stir the pot like a cauldron, hoping something vaguely cleansing happens by osmosis. Once washed, each piece must be wrung out by hand, twisting cold linen against your forearm, wringing until the water drips like tired rain. Then come the starches. You mix it carefully: flour, boiling water, a little salt, and dunk your nightdress until it's soaked stiff. This apparently makes it look fresh. In reality, it'll just scratch your thighs and make the collar unyielding again. You hang the garments on a line strung between two attic beams. If the weather is good, they go outside, but good weather also brings dust, soot, and curious neighborhood boys. So inside it is. The clothes sway gently like haunted flags, dripping onto the floorboards. Quirky tidbit: some families used blue dye in the rinse water to counteract yellowing. It didn't work. It just gave everything a sickly bluish tinge, like your chemise had been bruised. Your mother says it's fashionable. You pretend to agree. Ironing is next. Yes, even your underclothes must be pressed. The iron is a solid metal brute that sits directly on the stove to heat. You spit on it to test the temperature. It hisses. Good enough. You press each garment flat, careful not to burn it or your fingertips, and always pressing inside out in case the iron has soot. A smudge on a nightgown is a family embarrassment. Historians still argue whether middle-class girls did all this themselves or oversaw servants. In your house, servant is a generous word. You are the help, along with your sisters, along with every other girl trying to balance cleanliness and social performance in a world where being too clean is vain and not clean enough is scandalous. There's also mending. The seam you tore in the nightdress last week, still waiting. You thread a needle and begin the slow, agonizing process of making it invisible. A woman's hand, your mother says, should leave no trace. Meanwhile, the family's laundry pile lurks in the corner, glaring. You only handle your own underthings. Everyone has their realm, but the pressure is unspoken. If your father's collar is stiff with starch and yours isn't, questions will be asked. You want to be free of it, of course. You dream of nightdresses that clean themselves, fold themselves, disappear in the morning like polite ghosts. But this is 1852. And the closest thing to automation is a younger sibling with fewer opinions. The real insult? After all that boiling and scrubbing and pinching your fingers in a wringer, your nightdress still doesn't feel clean. The fabric carries stories. A night of crying into your collar, a fevered sleep with clammy legs, the dream you had that you can't quite forget. Starch doesn't erase memory, just stains. You hang it carefully in the wardrobe, hoping it will be dry by nightfall. If not, you'll wear it damp again, because the spare is still under lock and key, reserved for occasions. And because asking for better isn't something girls like you are trained to do. You know what happens to damp clothes in the attic. They don't just stay wet, they mildew, which is why you've taken to sprinkling lavender water around the seams, not because it helps, but because it makes you feel like you're doing something to fight back. You glance at the line of garments swaying above your bed, ghostly silhouettes of yourself in various stages of servitude. They look peaceful, tranquil, as if sleep could live in them. You know better, you wash, you scrub. You wring, and tonight you'll wear it again, and sweat, and dream of a world where night clothes mean comfort, not combat. You're finally clean, your linens are vaguely dry, and you're laced into your freshly scrubbed nightdress. It smells faintly of starch, old lavender, and the ever-present tension of having done just enough to pass muster. You climb into bed, arranging yourself as best you can around the mattress lump that feels suspiciously like a buried button, and then you catch sight of your ankle, just a flash, bare, pale, unshod. In the half-light, it glows like some forbidden relic. You yank your nightgown down quickly, part THUDDING. Because in your world, ankles are not just ankles, they are warnings. A bare ankle, especially at night, especially outside the covers, says something bold, something improper, something dangerous. The rules don't rest. Even when you do, you've grown up on whispered codes. A modest girl keeps her limbs hidden. Night clothes must reach the floor. Stockings may be worn to bed, depending on how serious your family is about decorum. Historians still argue whether girls actually slept in stockings, or if that detail's been overplayed in Victorian literature. You know this. Your mother insists on it, especially in winter, which is why, under your nightdress, you're still wearing them. Woolen, itchy, secured by garters that dig into your thighs just enough to remind you they're there. If you forget and roll in the night, they twist. If you kick them off, they end up in the wash basin or halfway down the stairs. One time, your sister tripped on a stray stocking in the dark and was convinced she was being attacked by the devil. You learned to keep them tucked in. Stockings at night serve a double purpose. 1 part warmth, 2 parts morality. Your father has opinions about girls who bare their legs, even under cover of darkness. And your mother says that sleeping without stockings leads to colds, corrupt thoughts, and calloused feet, all equally unacceptable. It's not just about what's seen. It's about what could be seen. Should some emergency wake the household at midnight, a creaking board, a shout from the street, a candle falling, and suddenly everyone's in the hall and your legs are the center of conversation. You've heard stories. One girl at the parish was caught on the stairs in her nightdress, no stockings. Her aunt fainted. Her engagement was postponed. The family moved to Sussex. You once asked why it matters so much, why an exposed foot already hidden under 10 pounds of linen could scandalize a household. Your mother blinked at you as if you'd asked whether breathing was optional. Because we are not animals, she said. You didn't ask again. Here's a quirky fact. In some households, there were actual ankle screens at the foot of the bed tiny decorative panels to ensure even accidental exposure was avoided. You've never seen one, but the idea of needing furniture to protect your virtue while unconscious isn't surprising anymore. Your stockings, by the way, are not comfortable. One is hand-darned from an old pair your aunt gave you. The toe seam is thick, and it rubs your skin raw if you curl your feet. You sleep with your toes pointed slightly upward, like a ballerina in slow motion, just to avoid the friction. You've tried going barefoot. Twice. Once in the dead of summer when the heat made your legs sweat so badly the wool stuck like glue. You peeled the stockings off in secret, lay back, and felt like you might float into the stars, but the guilt anchored you. You dreamed of disapproving whispers, of being discovered, of waking up to find your father standing in the doorway with that look, not anger, disappointment, the look that says you've compromised your future for comfort. You woke in a panic, groping for your stockings like they were lifelines. Found them, pulled them on with shaking hands. Never again. And so now, even in July, you sweat beneath the sheets, ankles cocooned in wool, legs stiff with constraint. You barely move, sleep in place. Dream under surveillance, Dot, and what do you dream of? Oddly enough, running. Barefoot across wet grass, your nightgown flowing loose behind you, feet splashing into puddles, hair unbound. You feel the mud, the wind, the delicious, terrible freedom. You always wake up before someone sees you, because someone will see you. That's the reality beneath. Your sheets, your stockings, your layers. You're not alone in your sleep. Not really. Modesty has eyes, even in the dark. You dress not just for yourself, but for the idea of who might be watching. You roll onto your side. The stockings pull at your knees. You sigh. Somewhere downstairs the clock chimes .midnight. Only 7 more hours of this left. You're drifting. Not asleep, not awake, floating somewhere between a damp woolen dream and the scrape of linen against your calf. And then it hits you. Not metaphorically, physically, a sudden need. Deep and undeniable. You have to pee. Worst part, you saw it coming. You knew when you drank from that enamel cup earlier, lukewarm water with the faint tang of rust, that this moment would arrive, and yet you drank, because your throat was dry and your mother was watching, and refusing water is bad for digestion. So here you are, tangled in fabric, restrained by stays, wrapped in a nightgown that weighs more than a newborn goat, and you must now navigate the single most cursed invention of your bedtime landscape, the chamber pot. Dot. But first, you must get to it. Dot. You shift slowly, trying not to wake your sister. She's curled like a shrimp, her braid a snare across your shared pillow. One wrong move and you'll catch an elbow to the temple. You inch 1 foot out from under the covers, the stocking, dragging slightly on the sheet. Already cold bites at your ankle like it's punishing you for indecency. You slide the other foot out. The chamber pot rests beneath the bed, where all good secrets go. Now here comes the 19th century twist. Your drawers don't have a crotch. Yes. Those drawers, the ones you laundered by hand, dried over a smoky beam, and pinned shut with your last good straight pin, are designed specifically to be split. Not torn, not open in shame. Deliberately constructed with a long vertical gap. For modesty, ironically. Because removing underclothes at night is not modest. lifting your gown, squatting delicately over porcelain while maintaining full torso. Coverage? Very modest. Quirky but true. These open crotch drawers were considered hygienic and even liberating by Victorian standards. You didn't have to strip. You just had to. Which brings us to now. You kneel beside the bed, nightgown gathered slightly at the waist, stockings sagging. You lift the pot's lid. The ceramic clanks. Too loud. You freeze. No sound from your sister? Good. You hover, balancing over a chamber pot in the dark while wearing stays and layers is an Olympic event. Your knees ache, your balance wavers. You hope, pray you're centered. There is no second chance here. You're on a wooden floor. The consequences are permanent. Historians still argue whether girls were expected to clean their own pots or if servants did it, but in your house it's absolutely your job. You've done it before, hands wrapped in cloth, nose turned upward, trying not to look. But right now, that doesn't matter. Right now, success is silence and no drips on the hem. You go. It's also horrifying. The sound echoes. More than it should. You try to make it gentle. You fail. It sounds like betrayal. You replace the lid. You wipe carefully. There's no toilet paper, of course. Just a square of soft linen, rinsed daily. You fold it and set it aside like a secret note. Then you shuffle back into bed. The mattress is colder now, like it knows you've sinned. You pull the covers up, retuck your gown, reposition the pillow. Your body has cooled. Your stays feel tighter. The wool of your stockings itches at the thigh. You're awake again, fully. There will be no easy slipping back into dreams. You stare at the ceiling and think of how much easier it must be for boys. They pee standing up. They don't worry about torn hems, chamber pot placement, or moonlight on an ankle. They don't dream of crawling back into bed with their dignity, rearranged like a pile of wet laundry. A part of you, the part that's starting to rebel, quietly wonders what would happen if you just didn't bother next time. If you snuck barefoot to the hallway privy, if you removed your drawers completely, if you let the night be messy instead of miserable. You imagine it, just for a second. Then the guilt crushes it like a lace-covered anvil. Because if your mother caught you, the punishment wouldn't be loud. That's not her way. It would be silent, lingering, the disappointed glances, the tighter lacing the next morning, the withdrawal of her trust in the form of one less compliment at supper. Worse, maybe a talk from father about the fragility of a girl's reputation. So, you lie still, back in bed, back in prison. You feel the weight of the chamber pot's presence under the bed. It smells faintly, just enough to remind you that even relief comes at a cost. You close your eyes and try to forget the sound. The position, the chill, you fail. Sleep, once again, will take its time. And tomorrow, you'll scrub that pot clean before breakfast. You always do. The morning bell hasn't rung yet, but you're awake again. Not because of the chamber pot this time. Not because your corset dug in, or your ankles slipped from the stockings, or the mosquito sang another aria beside your ear. No, this time it's something more primal, more ancient. You're itchy, and not just a casual, momentary tickle. No, this is a full body, head to toe, existential itch that radiates from somewhere between your shoulder blades and your sanity. It starts subtle, just an awareness that something is wrong. Then it builds, slowly, steadily, until your entire skin feels like it's humming a hymn of discomfort. Welcome to the world of bedbugs. Or perhaps fleas, or lice, or mites. Historians still argue about which vermin plagued which class of sleeper most intensely in the 19th century. But from where you're lying, sleepless, sweaty, twitching, it doesn't really matter. All you know is that something is biting you again. You scratch subtly. One fingertip darts under the collar of your nightdress. You feel something. Was that a bump? A crumb? A wing? You don't want to know. You scratch again. Harder. Beside you, your sister groans and turns away. She's used to your scratching by now. You've both learned to coexist with the midnight rustling, the early morning welts, and the unspoken shame of sharing a mattress with creatures that don't pay rent. Because you're in a boarding school dormitory now, a long, narrow attic space. Above the shop, filled with 6 identical beds, 6 identical wool blankets, and 6 equally tired merchant daughters. The walls are thin, the floorboards creak, and privacy is nothing more than a well-placed curtain and the hope no one is listening. The school is attached to the Merchants' Guild your father insisted. A good establishment that trains girls in embroidery, letter writing, and moral rigidity. You sleep shoulder to shoulder with future governesses and shopkeepers' wives. And if you're lucky, not next to Clara, the one with a mysterious rash and no concept of personal space. Your bed is hard. A straw tick, flattened by generations of previous girls, resting on a frame that moans every time you breathe. You stuff a flannel between the slats and the mattress to keep the pokiest springs from stabbing your back. It helps, briefly. The blanket smells like old wool, dried mildew, and whatever perfume the girl before you thought would mask it. It didn't. Here's a quirky historical tidbit. Some schools tried to combat lice outbreaks by dusting students' mattresses with sulfur, powder, or even kerosene. This did, in fact, kill bugs. It also occasionally caused chemical burns and set things on fire. You've never smelled sulfur in your dorm, but there's a chalky scent to the bedclothes that makes your nose twitch. Best not to investigate. You share your sleeping space with more than people. The dorm has mice. You've seen them. Tiny, fast, efficient. One lives in the corner under the warped floorboard. You've named it Percival. You'd almost find it charming if you hadn't caught it nibbling the corner of your under petticoat last week. Then there's the noise. 6 girls in one room means 6 different breathing patterns, snores, whispers, and dreams. One girl grinds her teeth. Another murmurs in French. You've learned to sleep between sounds like threading a needle. You wait for a pause in the snoring and dive into unconsciousness like a swimmer between waves. It never lasts. Tonight, the itch spreads. Now it's your thigh, now your elbow. You sit up, flick back the covers, and check your skin by candlelight. Yes, there's a single shared candle still burning on the bedside table, stuck in a blob of wax that might once have been a candlestick. You squint. A bite, tiny, red, familiar. Your stomach turns. You look across the room at the other girls, most of them asleep. One is shifting under the covers. Another is whispering prayers. Clara is on her back, blanket half kicked off, arms sprawled wide like she's being arrested in her sleep. You envy her freedom. and her lack of WELTS. The mattress crinkles slightly. As you lie back down, you don't dare make noise. You've already been warned once about disturbing the others. One more infraction and you're on chore duty for a week. Again, you scratch behind your ear and immediately regret it. Your fingers come away with a fleck of something you don't want to identify. Lice, probably. You mentally schedule a vinegar rinse for tomorrow. You'll have to beg one of the matrons for an extra pail of water and hope the smell fades before lessons begin. Historians still argue whether these infestations were considered normal nuisances or signs of moral failure. You've learned it's both. If a girl scratches too much, she's filthy. If she doesn't, she's uncaring. The trick is to itch discreetly, and to always pretend it's something else. A loose thread, a wrinkle, a ghost. You pull the blanket up again, ignoring the tingling along your spine. You wrap yourself like a caterpillar trying to survive a harsh winter and tell yourself, don't move, don't scratch, don't feel. Just wait for morning, because in a few hours the bell will ring, the matron will shout. You'll rise red-eyed and itchy and pretend nothing is wrong. Just another night survived in the company of lace, lice, and whispered judgment. And tonight, you didn't even scream progress. You're awake before the bell, again. This time not from bugs or bladders or binding corsets. No, this time it's pressure. A very particular kind. The door creaks, soft footfalls, and then the unmistakable sound of boots on old wood. Slow, measured, intentional. You don't move. You don't breathe. Every girl in the dorm is still. Not because they're asleep, but because he's here. Your father. Not yours alone, of course. He belongs to you in name and responsibility. But this morning he's the embodiment of all. Fathers, that looming male presence with a moral checklist and the audacity to inspect sleeping quarters like a general before battle. This isn't uncommon. Merchant fathers like to oversee, to check that daughters are sleeping with dignity, waking with purpose, and not degenerating into creatures of laziness or, worse, imagination. Historians often romanticize the era's domestic routines, but they rarely mention how many girls woke under inspection. He walks slowly between the beds, surveying the scene. 6 still figures blanketed modestly, no limbs exposed, no hair unpinned. He stops. You feel it before you see it, his gaze lingering on your bed. Your stocking has slipped again. Just a little, maybe an inch. But in this world, an inch is everything. You keep your eyes closed. You pray he doesn't speak. You focus on your breathing slow, shallow, like you're dreaming of butterflies and not humiliation. He exhales and moves on. You hear the door click shut. Only then do you move your foot, just slightly. Enough to let the blood flow back in. You pull the blanket up to your chin. Adjust your cap. Realign the shoulder seams of your nightdress. It's not that anything was truly out of place, but in this house, in this world, modesty is a choreography, and the dance never ends. Quirky fact: there were published bedroom inspection checklists in some Victorian etiquette manuals. Suggestions range from no loose hair visible to a lady must never sleep with her mouth open, as if dreams could be judged from the outside. You hear your sister groan quietly beside you, not because she's awake, but because she's been awake this whole time. You both have. No one sleeps through a father's inspection. It's like trying to nap during a thunderstorm, except the thunder wears boots and has opinions about propriety. You lie still and think about what might have happened if he'd spoken. He could have said nothing and still meant everything. A raised eyebrow, a tug of the blanket, a gentle reminder about what good girls do, because modesty over comfort isn't just a rule, it's a lifestyle, and it doesn't clock out. At bedtime, even now, fully dressed in your night clothes, you are not unobserved. There are standards. There is decorum. There is a constant, invisible audience dot, and so you sleep with your hair braided, your collar buttoned, your ankles hidden, your body restrained. Not because it's easy, but because not doing so risks everything. The idea of comfort belongs to another world, one with warm baths, loose fabrics, and the freedom to sprawl. In your world, a twisted nightgown is a scandal, and a bare shoulder is a sin waiting to happen. There's a draft. You feel it along your neck. You tug the collar of your nightgown higher. The girls around you start to shift. No one speaks, but you all know. The moment has passed. He's gone. For now, but the mood has changed. You sit up slowly. The blanket falls with a practiced fold. Your legs swing over the side of the bed and hover just above the cold floor. You lower them together, carefully. No gap between your knees. No sound. Even waking must be graceful. You stand. The night dress, already creased from sleep, billows slightly. You smooth it without thinking. Your hands know the routine. So does your spine. The matron will be here soon to light the lamps, to hand out the basins, to clap and say things like, "Rise with dignity, girls," while ignoring the smudge of coal on her own apron. You start folding your blanket. Your father once told you that a neat bed is the sign of a marriageable girl. You were 12. You folded with military precision ever since. Your sister joins you. She doesn't speak, but she adjusts her cap in the cracked mirror. Her reflection is blurred, warped by age and moisture. You both look like ghosts. She, not a DS. You nod back. This is your world. Shared spaces, shared silences, shared standards. And above all, watchfulness. Even at 2 a.m., even in the dark, even when no one is supposed to be looking, someone might be. So you stay modest. Stay measured. Because you are never entirely alone and never entirely offstage. It begins like any other morning, except it doesn't. There's a heaviness in your body, not just the usual stiffness from night stays or a lingering itch. It's lower, atchy, dull, insistent. Then you feel the unmistakable dampness between your legs, and just like that, it's that time again, your period. You remain completely still, eyes open, breath shallow, mind racing. There's no calendar tucked under your pillow, no tracking app, no hot water bottle waiting to comfort you. Just a set of internal alarm bells and the creeping fear that your night dress may already be a casualty. You shift, gently, carefully. The sensation confirms it. Blood, and not a whisper of it either. No neat, controlled beginning. Just the red tide, the silent betrayal of your own insides. You reach under the covers, heart pounding, and press the cloth shift between your legs. It's wet. You withdraw your hand and don't even need the light to know. Your day has begun with failure. Welcome to menstruation in the 19th century. You swing your legs out of bed, bracing for the cold, not of the floor, of the shame, the judgment, the possibility that anyone might notice the small crimson smear on your nightclothes before you can hide it. Your sister rolls over but doesn't look at you. You hope she doesn't smell anything, because here's the truth. No one talks about this. Not really. Girls whisper. Mothers scold. Matrons hand out scraps of cloth like they're distributing state secrets. And you? You learn quickly to adapt, improvise, and bleed quietly. You check the mattress. Relief. Just a small spot. Nothing visible. You grab your shawl and wrap it tightly around your waist before scurrying to the washstand like a spy in a night raid. There's water in the pitcher, barely cold as grief. You wet a corner of your cloth, dab at your thighs, clean yourself with awkward angles and shivers. There's no privacy, no locks, just thin curtains and thick expectations. Your linen rag is already soaked. You wring it, fold it, try to reuse it for at least another hour. You have 2 more in the chest by your bed, but they're stiff and poorly stitched. One still has traces of last month. You've asked for more. Your mother said, make do. Historians still argue whether middle and working-class girls had regular access to fresh menstrual cloths or simply reused what they could. But from where you're standing, half-dressed, half-washed, wholly miserable, it doesn't feel like much of a debate. Here's a quirky fact. Many believed menstruation was not just inconvenient, but dangerous. A wandering womb could cause hysteria. Too much blood could lead to spiritual weakness. Some girls were told not to look in mirrors during their time. Others were banned from religious services. You're expected to pretend it isn't happening. Even your posture must remain composed. No hand to your lower belly, no grimace, no crouching by the fire. You tried once clutching your side during embroidery class. The instructor simply handed you more thread and said, suffering builds character. You bled through that petticoat. It's still hanging in the back of your wardrobe, rinsed but forever stained. Today, your focus is damage, control. You wrap the old rag with an extra layer of muslin, pin it in place, and step into your drawers still crotchless, still useless. The layered cloth will shift and chafe throughout the day, but it's all you have. There are no belts, no pads, no elastic, just a pile of folded linen and a prayer that you don't bleed through in front of anyone important. Back in bed, you wrap the soiled nightdress in another towel. You'll scrub it later, before anyone sees. If the stain sets, it's your fault. If someone finds it, it's your shame. You wish you could rest. Your abdomen cramps. Your lower back pulses with that rhythmic, molten throb that makes you want to curl up and vanish. But there's work to do. There's always work to do. You grab a small sachet of vinegar and water. You keep hidden near your basin. It's for rinsing and for masking the smell. Because even though every girl here is bleeding once a month, the scent of blood is considered unhygienic, improper, a sign of poor upbringing. Your fingers are red now. You'll scrub them with soap until they're raw. It won't matter. You'll still feel unclean. And there's no sympathy. Not here. Not when the belief still lingers that a menstruating girl must avoid touching milk, lest it curdle, or baking, bread lest it fall flat, or combing her hair too forcefully lest it weaken her constitution. You once sneezed during your cycle and were told to rest so you didn't ruin your lungs. Rest. That's a joke you pull on your day stays, wincing as they press against your tender stomach. You lace them slower today, tighter, hoping the compression might soothe the ache. It doesn't. It just hides it. You think of girls who run away from this, who tear off their corsets and sleep naked in fields. You imagine them bleeding freely, shouting at the moon. But that's fantasy. Here, you'll wrap another rag. You'll change it at lunch. You'll carry a spare hidden in your apron pocket. You'll hide the soiled one in your sleeve and wash it with cold water and a quiet mouth. You'll sit up straight. You'll smile, and tonight you'll sleep stiff, sore, and stitched into civility. Because even on your worst days, modesty demands everything. You're dreaming again, or trying to. It's the kind of dream where you're finally free barefoot on soft moss, your corset tossed into a stream, your hair unpinned and blowing wildly. You're laughing. Someone's calling your name. Then thud, you jolt awake, air punched out of your lungs. You're on the floor. You blink at the ceiling, confused. The rafters are upside down. Your nightcap is half off. You reach for the edge of the bed, cold wood against cold fingers, and realize you've rolled out in your sleep. You rolled out. In your house. That's not just inconvenient. It's scandalous. You scramble up, heart racing, hands tugging your nightgown back into place. The hem's hitched. Your stockings around your ankle. One sleeve's slipped. The bedclothes are a mess. You glance around in the darkness, panicked. Did anyone hear? Your sister is still snoring. Thank God. You take a shaky breath. Your side aches. A bruised hip, probably. But that's nothing compared to what might have happened if someone saw. If your father had done another modesty patrol. If your mother had found you sprawled on the floor like a fallen statue of shame. You ease back into bed, cheeks burning, pulse still high. You know what this means. You loosened your stays last night. Just a bit, just enough to breathe, just enough to stop that dull cramping from becoming unbearable, just enough to hope for sleep, and look what it got you. Because the truth is, even rebellion has consequences, and they aren't dramatic. No one storms in and accuses you of sin. Instead, rebellion creeps back into your life in the form of bruises and worry and the ever-growing realization that even in your own bed, you're not really safe. Historians still argue whether night accidents like these were common girls, falling from narrow, overcrowded beds, sleepwalking, or worse. Some claim it was the stays. Others blame hysteria or the vapors, or even moonlight madness. You know the real cause, exhaustion. A body finally giving in to gravity after nights spent twisted like a rope. There are stories. You've heard them whispered at the back, of sewing class. Girls who wandered the halls in their nightgowns, who spoke strange words while asleep. One girl who supposedly climbed out onto the roof of the dormitory and sat on the edge, humming lullabies until a matron dragged her back inside. That girl was sent away. No one says where. Sleepwalking is taboo. Dangerous. It suggests a lack of control. And girls must always be in control of their movements, their expressions, their very dreams. You lie very still and try to trace how it happened. Did you loosen the stays too much? Were you dreaming of running again? You rub your ribs where the fabric is still creased. It's soft now, forgiving. The laces are slackened. Just a little. You did that dot, you made that choice, and for a few hours it worked. You slept deeply, maybe even peacefully, until your body, used to sleeping like a marble statue, shifted just enough to betray you. Here's a quirky detail. Some girls in the 1800s were fitted with bed straps, not restraints, exactly, but cloth ties that looped across the covers to keep them in place. At boarding schools especially, where girls were packed like folded laundry, movement was discouraged. Beds weren't wide enough. Behavior wasn't allowed to be either. You've never had straps, but you've had warnings. Sleep like a lady. Your mother once said, stillness reflects inner peace. You thought inner peace came from prayer or poetry. Apparently it comes from not thrashing. You curl up now, tighter than before, blankets pulled to your chin, knees to your chest. The loosened stays are a risk, but retightening them in the dark feels like punishment. And truthfully, you're too sore to fight with laces at this hour dot, so you stay like this, crumpled, quiet, trying not to think about what would have happened if your sister had woken, or the matron, or anyone dot tomorrow. You'll say nothing. You'll smooth the sheets. You'll fluff the pillow to hide the indent of your skull where it hit the floorboards. You'll lace your stays properly, maybe even tighter than usual, just to make up for tonight's lapse, because the lesson is clear. Looseness leads to disgrace, even when no one sees. Especially then, your body aches, your pride stings, but your secret is intact. That's what matters. You stare at the ceiling and you whisper a silent promise. No more loosening, no more falling, even if it means never sleeping deeply again. You don't smell great. Let's just be honest. Underneath all the starch and lavender sachets, beneath the vinegar foot baths and flower water rinses, there's still you. A living, sweating, menstruating, nervous, modestly panicking you. And you're beginning to realize that no matter how many scented handkerchiefs you stuff into your bodice or tuck under your pillow, the body refuses to be ignored. It starts small. The faint sour tang under your arms that no amount of rosewater disguises. The stale salt smell along your collarbone. The milky odor of old wool soaked in too many summer nights and too few real washes. You lie in bed, very still, very aware. There's a scent in the air. It's not horrible. Not rotting cabbage or raw sewage. Just human. Real. And real is dangerous, because in your world, cleanliness isn't just next to godliness. It's tied directly to your value. A merchant daughter who smells is a merchant daughter who fails. So begins the nightly ritual of the battle against odor. First, the sachet, tied with a ribbon, sewn into the neckline of your night dress, filled with crushed dried herbs, lavender, rosemary, lemon verbena if you're lucky, pennyroyal if you're not. You squish it lightly with your fingers before bed to reactivate the aroma. As your mother says, then the vinegar. A shallow bowl sits on your washstand, filled with a mixture of rainwater and cider vinegar. You dip a rag into it and pat. Your feet behind your knees, under your arms. It burns slightly. and it leaves a smell of its own, 1 part salad, 1 part shame. Quirky fact: vinegar was believed to ward off disease, freshen the air, and even close the pores, which were thought to be little doorways where filth entered the soul. Some girls carried vinegar-soaked cloths to smell during the day, pressing them to their noses when passing less than fragrant areas, or people. You lie back down, damp, slightly sticky, smelling faintly like pickled herbs, but it's not enough. You remember the girl in your dorm last winter, Beatrice, from the coast. She had perfect posture, perfect hair, and a faint odor of honey soap that made everyone else hate her just a little. One day she forgot to wash, just once, and someone said something. Within 2 days she was the smelly one. Her nickname, unspoken but unanimous, lasted the rest of the term. So you lie in your bed, breathing shallowly, imagining clouds of scent hovering around your body like visible shame. You try to tuck your arms tightly to your sides to trap the smell. You press your legs together for the same reason. You're practically shrink-wrapping yourself in self-containment, and it still isn't working. Historians still argue how frequently girls of your class bathed. Once a week? Once a month? Was a full-body scrub even feasible in a world without hot running water or personal tubs? You know this. Bathing is not part of the nightly routine. You get a basin, maybe a cloth. You do your best. You once tried washing your hair before bed. It took 2 hours to dry, gave you chills, and resulted in a scolding so intense your ears rang for a day. Now your hair smells like the pillowcase you can't quite get dry in winter. In your breath, you swished mint in water once. The leaves stuck to your teeth and someone laughed. You never did it again. There's a lavender wax ball you sometimes press to your wrists, a gift from your mother. She says a good scent leaves a trail of grace. You nod. But secretly, you just want to not smell like anyone, because any scent is dangerous. Too fragrant, and you're vain. Trying too hard, worldly. Who are you trying to impress? Too sour, and you're lazy. Unfit for marriage. Lacking discipline. The sweet spot is invisible, but you are not invisible. You're human. And human smells. You shift under the covers, feeling the dried sweat clinging beneath your nightdress. You wonder if the scent has sunk into the fabric, if it's now part of the thread count. You think of airing it out, then remember that opening? The window lets in moths, dust, and the neighbors' opinions. You pull the blankets up instead. A scent trap. A fabric sarcophagus. This is the nightly paradox. You are expected to smell like nothing, but you must also smell pleasant. And you must achieve this through linen and lemons and self-discipline alone. You once read that Roman women used rosewater and cinnamon oil. You daydream about it. Being an empress, lounging in scented oils, allowed to reek of something beautiful, but instead you rub rosemary leaves between your palms, crush them into your pillow, and pretend it's a perfume. Your sister coughs in her sleep. You flinch. Did she catch a whiff? No, probably not. Still, you lie awake for another hour, eyes open in the dark, mentally tracking every gland, every crease, every corner of your body that might be failing. You drift off eventually, dreaming of bathtubs the size of beds, where you can soak your whole self in jasmine and honey, and wake up to the sour smell of dried sweat and vinegar, knowing it was only a dream. Tonight you don't dream of flying or running or honey-scented baths. Tonight your dreams are stranger, heavier, the kind where you try to cry out but your mouth won't open, where your arms are tangled in vines, or is it fabric? And every step you take pulls you deeper into cotton and wool and lace until even the ground beneath you is made of stitched seams and modesty. You wake with a gasp, heart racing, face damp with sweat. For one flicker of a second, you forget where you are. Then the stays press into your ribs, the stockings itch behind your knees, and the damp underside of your nightdress clings to your skin. Yes, still here, still dreaming in a prison of linen. You turn over, carefully, mindful of buttons and lace trim. The mattress groans, the bed frame whispers, and you freeze for a moment, waiting, listening. All quiet. Your sister is asleep, or pretending to be. You stare up into the dark and try to find anything pleasant to think about. A warm pie, a meadow, maybe a memory of lying on the floor as a little girl, sun on your face, no stays, no layers, just cotton knickers and a ribbon in your hair. But the memories are fading. These days, even your dreams have started to wear long sleeves, because modesty doesn't clock out when you fall asleep. It seeps into your subconscious. It alters the way you lie, the way you turn, the way you imagine yourself. In dreams, you still button your collar, still apologize for your ankles. Historians sometimes write about the moral shaping of Victorian girls as if it's purely educational lessons, books, prayer time. What they forget is the night training, the unconscious molding. Sleep isn't a break. It's the final test. Your body never gets to truly let go. Even in the deepest hours of the night, it remembers how it's supposed to behave. Stiff, contained, controllable. And so you dream accordingly. There's a recurring one you don't talk about. You're standing at the front of a church, in your nightdress, barefoot. Everyone is staring. You've forgotten to pin your hair. Your wrists are showing. Your father's voice booms across the pews. She slept loosely. You always wake just before the floor gives way beneath you. You've tried reading before bed, hoping to steer your mind somewhere nicer. But the books you're allowed, conduct manuals, religious tracts, the occasional girl's cereal, are laced with the same warnings you already sleep through. One wrong thought and your dreams will be full of consequence. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some 19th century moralists believed dreams were a reflection of one's soul health. If you dreamed of flying, you were prideful. If you dreamed of falling, you were sinful. If you dreamed of desire, well, you didn't speak of it at all. So you learn to edit even your imagination. You train your brain to stay inside the rules. Don't dream of kissing. Don't dream of running barefoot. Don't dream of cutting the ties of your corset with a dinner knife and throwing it out the window into the rain. Instead, you dream of sitting properly, of not being noticed, of floating through social calls like a pleasant shadow. The ideal dream is one where nothing happens, no scandal, no exposure, no sweat stains. And when you wake from those, you feel oddly triumphant. But tonight wasn't one of those nights. Tonight's dream clung. It slithered. It whispered about freedom in dangerous ways. And now you're left trying to exhale the unease from your lungs without making a sound. Your hand strays to your chest, fingers curling around the edge of the nightdress neckline. It's damp. The fabric has twisted in sleep. You straighten it automatically, smoothing it back to decency. A small ritual to restore your shape. You glance across the room. Everyone else is still asleep. You lie back, arms at your sides, legs together, chin slightly raised. The proper sleep posture. As if someone might sketch you like this, modest even in slumber, but your mind won't let go of the image. Your feet in wet grass. Your hair unbound. The sound of laughter that might have been yours. You try to banish it. Replace it with something safe. A memory of folding laundry. A sermon. The smell of starch, but the dream lingers, like a wrinkle in the hem of your thoughts. And the worst part, you liked it. You want it back, just for a second. You sigh quietly, feeling the guilt settle in like dust on a bookshelf. Tomorrow, you'll say your prayers extra slowly. You'll scrub harder. You'll recite a psalm while folding your chemise. You'll do everything right. And tonight, when you drift off again, you'll try to dream of lace collars and ankle boots and nothing at all. The first gray brush of morning light presses softly against the sloped attic ceiling. It's not golden or warm, it's pale and cool and a little damp, like the breath of a window ghost. And yet it still feels like a relief, because somehow you made it through the night. You didn't bleed through your cloth. You didn't fall out of bed. No one saw your ankle. The chamber pot incident remains your secret. The stays are still mostly laced. The nightdress didn't ride up. Your dreams, while a little unruly, remained safely unspoken. And that in your world counts as success. You open your eyes, slowly, carefully, like testing the air for disapproval. The room stirs, a shift of a blanket, a creak of a board, a muffled yawn. You sit up with the posture of someone being watched, because you always are. Even when you're alone, even in these early hours, the imaginary gaze of your family, your peers, your future husband, your dead great-aunt Margaret, whose nightdress you're currently wearing, all loom like invisible portraits on the wall. You swing your legs down, feet landing in your stockings with barely a sound. The mattress lets out a tired exhale behind you. You smooth your nightgown. You retie your braid. You pinch your cheeks once for color, just a little, and wipe away the faint smear of sleep from beneath one eye with the edge of your sleeve. This is how you greet the day. Not refreshed, but composed. You slept, but not well. You dreamed, but not deeply. Your body rested, but never relaxed. And yet, the worst part is how normal this feels. You barely notice the ache in your ribs anymore, or the way the fabric chafes the inside of your elbows. You've learned to sleep with your hands, folded just so, to keep your legs from tangling, to breathe shallowly, to roll without disturbing your cap. These things live in you now, like manners, like secrets. You glance at your pillow creased and faintly stained from last week's shampoo with baking soda and lukewarm rainwater. The nightdress clings to your back slightly, damp again. You'll have to change it, scrub it, hang it up. Pretend it will feel fresh tomorrow. You begin to undress. Not dramatically, no. That would be indecent. Just quietly, delicately. A button here, a ribbon there. The stays slip off with a sound like a breath being released. Your ribs expand a little. Not much. You don't sigh. You fold the stays carefully, like something sacred, and place them in. Your chest with the reverence of a priestess handling relics. You remove the nightdress, checking the hem, the underarms, the ragged collar. Nothing too visible. Nothing that can't be explained away with a shrug. You change into your morning chemise and drawstring skirt, already starched and waiting. Still layered, still modest, but lighter somehow. The weight of the night, at least, has lifted Dot, and now the room brightens further. Sun through cracked window panes. Dust motes dance in slow spirals, like drifting thoughts. You almost smile, almost Dot, because now the day begins. The real performance. Breakfast, chores, lessons, politeness, posture, a full 12 hours of being. Seen, Dot, and yet there's a strange pride in you this morning, Dot, because you did it. You survived the night, wearing underwear, designed by society and stitched by obligation, sleeping on straw, sharing space with insects and expectations, monitored by silence and guilt. You endured, not triumphantly, but persistently, and sometimes that's all you get. Not comfort, not rest, just a kind of quiet endurance that says, I was there, and I did not crumble. You tie your apron. You press your lips together, Dot, and when you leave the room, you don't look back at the bed, because you'll be back soon enough, Dot. And now, as the last candle burns low and the dawn slips gently into place, you lie very still beneath your blankets, those familiar folds of fabric that have held you each night like a hesitant hug. That the story soften now. Let the corners round, the laces loosen, the woolen edges ease. Your breath finds its rhythm slower, steadier. A quiet tide beneath a linen shore. The nightgown no longer scratches. The stays in this moment do not pinch. The stockings have cooled. The pillow is warm in just the right way. The sounds of the house are gentle again, a floorboard size. A pigeon murmurs from the rooftop. Somewhere below, a kettle is being filled. The world spins forward, but not too fast. You've been still for so long that even your dreams have learned to wait patiently, Dot. So you let yourself slip under the surface of thought, of memory, of expectation. The day will come. It always does, but not yet. Dot. Now is for sleep, for surrender, for the simple peace of staying put. Your fingers uncurl, your legs soften. Dot. Your mind, once filled with hems and buttons and modesty, begins to empty, and at last you are allowed to rest, not because you've earned it, but because even in a corseted world, the night must end, and you, quiet and brave and bound in cotton, may sleep, just sleep, sweet dreams.